It took a second to think the answer. I don't think so.
Our meeting is being recorded. That's right. Yeah. I keep wanting to touch this. Okay, so meeting is now being recorded. So is everybody ready?
Yep.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to, is it 3 o'clock? Yeah, it's 3 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the meeting, the regular meeting of the Mission Springs Water District Board of Directors of September 20th, 2021. We'll start with, well, let's just do the roll call first. Roll call, please. Dory.
Very good. Director Sewell,
Here?
Director Grasha,
Here.
Director Duncan,
Here.
Vice President Martin,
Present.
and President Wright.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Okay, thank you for today's, well, instead of an invocation, I guess you might say, we're going to have a little special situation here for the 13 soldiers that died on August 26th in Kabul. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out with Vice President Martin's going to say a few words, and then we're going to play a song.
Okay, would you all stand, please? I'd like to, at this time, take a moment of silence in tribute to the military heroes who died at the Kabul airport, providing humanitarian work, assisting citizens who were trying to flee the country on August 26, 2024. So a moment of silence, please. Sergeant Johanny Rosario Picardo, Marine Corps, Lawrence, Massachusetts. Sergeant Nicole L. Gee, Marine Corps, Sacramento, California. Sergeant Darren Hoover, Marine Corps, Salt Lake City, Utah. Corporal Hunter Lopez, Marine Corps, Indio, California. Corporal Dagan Page, Marine Corps, Omaha, Nebraska. Corporal Humberto Sanchez, Marine Corps, Logan's Point, Indiana. Corporal David Espinoza, Marine Corps, Rio Bravo, Texas. Corporal Jared Schmitz, Marine Corps, St. Charles, Missouri. Corporal Riley McCallum, Marine Corps, Jackson, Wyoming. Corporal Dylan Marola, Marine Corps, Rancho Cucamonga, California. Corporal Kareem Nakui, Marine Corps, Norco, California. Navy Corpsman Max Soviak, Berlin Heights, Ohio. Sergeant Ryan Nas, Army, Corryton, Tennessee. Rest in peace.
Thank you. Okay, now let's play this song here in honor of these 13 soldiers. Guess we could sit down, huh? It's not the music.
So proud. Yes, the white glass gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the pale moon's light. Oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets breaking, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag would
Thank you, Dory. Okay, rules of procedure, please, Mr. Pinckney.
Yes, according to the rules of procedure adopted by the Board of Directors, all notice meetings are conducted using Rosenberg's Rules of Order as a procedural guideline. The president of the board presides at all meetings and decides all points of order and procedure during meetings. The president is responsible for maintenance of order and decorum at all board meetings. No person should be allowed to speak who has not first been recognized by the president. All questions and remarks should be addressed to the president as a presiding officer. No member of the board should speak more than once upon any one subject until every other member of the board wishing to speak on the subject shall have been given an opportunity to speak. No board member shall interfere with the orderly progress of a board meeting. In order to ensure the orderly progress of board meetings, the board president regulates the amount of time to be dedicated to a particular agenda item.
Thank you. Dory, do we have anybody for public comments for items that are not on the agenda today?
There are a few I need to ask. Participant iPhone, are you here to observe or make public comment? Participant iPhone,
I don't believe it's just be Greg here at the treatment plant.
okay, thank you.
I guess if we get recognized for
Yes, in just a moment.
going up.
Caitlin Hamilton, are you here to observe or make public comment?
Hi there. I am the environmental consultant for the Vista Reservoir project and the HNI project here, just in case there are any questions or comments. And Tom Dodson is also here as well to answer questions from Tom Dodson and Associates.
Excellent. Thank you, Caitlin. Madam President, there are no members present for public input.
You. Okay, Human Resources Report. Wow, what a group of employees we have on this anniversary. My goodness, I didn't add them all up, but there's got to be a lot of beers here. We have Lee Boyer, Chief Plant Operator, 21 years. I'll just name them all and then we'll go back. Jesus Gonzalez, Field Service Representative 1, 17 years. Arden Wallem, General Manager, 16 years. Greg Chapman, Wastewater Treatment Plant Operator 2, 15 years. And Claudia Lopez, Accounting Technician, 1 year. Claudia, you're in good company there. Okay, the new hirees, we have Jason Martinez, Field Operations Technician 1. We have anniversaries for Jose Hernandez, Field Service Representative 2, 14 years. Shane Winnick, Winky, Wastewater Treatment Operator 2, 15 years. No promotion. Okay, so those are for the first batch is for September, no, it's for July, and the second batch is for August. So let's go back up to Lee and Arden. I'll turn it back over to you.
Could I add one more thing before we go on to the
Sure.
end there?
Did I miss something?
No, well, not exactly. But also want to wish Kurt a happy birthday today. It's his birthday. You don't, you told me your age and I couldn't believe it. So it's,
He's got
I want to know what vitamins you're taking, man. That's all I got to tell you. Hey, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
He is comes to us with much experience, and we know his work, and he's
Mr. Wallem, closer to your microphone, please.
Kurt comes to us with much experience, and we know his work, and we're very proud to have him on board. Thanks.
If he says he's over 25, he's lying.
Double it. Okay.
Lee.
Now you want,
Start with-
okay, starting out, I'll let, did Bassam or Danny want to say anything about Lee right now? Because if you don't, I'll begin, and if you want to take off from where I am, then.
Sorry, I was
then
trying to
please
learn how to use the
jump in.
mute button.
I
My
hear
fault,
Danny
sir.
now.
Lee is, of course, the one that hauls us all off to the Corbs every year, and the board, when I got here, we started to go to that event. And I don't think we've ever had one annual meeting that I think the board and the staff has missed since then. And he takes a good leadership role with the professional organization. He's been with us 21 years. So Danny, did you want to elaborate on that and Bassam?
I didn't mean to cut you off, Arden. I didn't know if Arden or if Bassam was on the call. I will just add, Lee, thank you. I've worked with you those 21 years and have the pleasure of doing so. Thank you for what you do for the district. And I do echo all the things that Arden said. You have been with the district and have participated in a lot of extracurricular outside, so it shows a lot of dedication. We appreciate what you do here, and thank you for the 21 years.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you, Lee. I watched you kind of grow up there at the wastewater treatment plant.
How do you like that, Lee? She watches you grow up.
Anyway, and then become the top dog, no less. Anyway, okay, Jesus Gonzalez.
Jesus, I don't see, Jesus isn't with us today, is he? Or is he? Okay,
See.
he is? Okay,
Down here.
All right. Oh, there you are, right next to Danny. I'm sorry. It's a long way for, back of Randy there. Jesus has been with the customer service people, and we have a wonderful group. We have another one here today too from that group. And I can tell you that they're the ones that go out to the field and deal with the issues out in the field with the customers. And it takes a special personality and a special patience and knowledge that we appreciate. And I've always loved talking to Jesus and enjoying his conversations. And I appreciate having him here. Is April on the line or Donnie? Do they want to say anything?
I am. This is April. I'm not sure if Don is or not. No, we appreciate Jesus. He has worked for the district a long time. Customers really appreciate Jesus. We get a lot of compliments, and we're just really happy to have him as part of our team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Next in line, Arden Wallem.
No, we'll
Guys-
skip that. We can
Guys,
skip that.
anybody want to say anything?
I'm afraid of what they
Come
would
on, now's your
say.
chance. Danny, come on, you're always good at something.
Dory raised her hand.
Dory, is she, or is Dory up?
Dory raised her hand? Oh, no.
I can't see Dory on
No, I thank you
Do I
for,
get a free pass?
free pass.
I want to thank you for the most wonderful 16 years in my professional career. So, and leave it at that.
Congratulations for making it 16 years, and thank you for all your hard work and making this district successful.
It's been great. I can say a little something.
Pardon?
I can say a little something.
Okay, Randy.
Nancy, you've been here longer than any of us, any of the rest of us. Arden and I came on virtually the same
At the
time.
same time.
When I was first appointed to the board. Actually, Joe Bocanegro was still the general manager. Arden was coming in and waiting to take the helm. At the time, the district was, what it was. I didn't know any better. I just, it is what it is. Shown to me, here it is. But over the years, trips to DC, we've not raked in, but we've got access to, I think our last count was 35 million.
Well, we've had that much in grants and probably that much again in
Right.
other alternative outside funding besides what we needed, what we
Right.
use for rates.
Right.
Yeah.
The systems we've built, the sewers we've built, the tanks, the district, going from ups and downs, the economy, everything. You've done a spectacular job. I appreciate you giving a ration of, appreciate giving you a ration of garbage every time I can, but you've done a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
All right. Then the
Greg.
next,
Greg Chapman?
the next person, has a special relationship with Russ because I don't know if you still have your Mustang, Greg, but I know that you did for a while there.
No, just the 55 Chevy now.
Oh, dude, just the Chevy. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
You,
Traitor.
Greg has been working at the plant and with Lee and done a great job. And we appreciate that experience and that knowledge that he's brought to the district. And I'm gonna let Lee knows more about Greg than I do. So Lee, you want to say anything?
Yeah, Greg's been an integral part of the department the last couple of years. He's really stepped up, taking on the role of, he used to be the belt press master. You know, he was the one that could run the press better than anybody else. He's now has a new role. He is the pond master. Yeah, he really takes pride in cleaning our ponds when they're empty to make sure that when we put them back on, they last for a good period of time. He likes to take his time and not make a bunch of whoopie-doos out there. He just likes to be nice, level and flat. And he's also taken on another role of help training some junior operators that we have on staff. And really working hand in hand with them. So I appreciate everything Greg's doing for me and the department and the district.
Thank you, Lee. And congratulations there, Greg. And you made it 15 years.
I know. It's amazing. I still have my hair.
Okay. The next person is one of those great people, new people that we've been hiring. We have had the fortune of really coming across great talent in the new people that we've put on board here over the last couple years or few years. And I mean, it's just phenomenal, the quality of work we get out of them. And Claudia is one of those people. And I know that Arturo has a lot of good things to say, so I'm going to let him speak and talk to you about Claudia.
Yes, Claudia, we're fortunate to have started a year ago. Prior to that, she was a temp person for a month. And from day one, she's been more than anything we could ask for. She has been instrumental in a lot of the changes we're doing and that the board and the community can see in front of them. And she just takes something and runs with it. Everyone you talk to that knows Claudia will tell you what a great employee, what a great person she is, and just overall hard worker. We couldn't ask for more. Thank you.
And she's also, I haven't lately, but I've spent a lot of time at lunch with Claudia and Dory and Rita, because we eat down here in the boardroom, especially during the pandemic, and I get to know them quite well when you get to visit while you're having lunch. And Claudia is really an interesting person, comes from a very interesting family, and we're very lucky to have you, Claudia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jason Martinez, and I'll let Jeff speak to that. Is Jason here?
Yeah.
Jason's right here. He's with me.
Okay.
Jason Martinez comes, with a little bit of experience from a previous water agency. He's been with us now for a couple months. He came to us with a distribution 1 and a treatment certification. He is currently working on a commercial license, and he's been doing an excellent job for the first few months of employment here. He's right here next to me, so y'all can see him. Hello.
Hi, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
You're one of those new hires that we were really proud to get on board. So thank you and welcome. Okay. The next person is also one of those customer service people that I talk to periodically and just love, and that's Joe Hernandez. Joe always is a hard worker, quiet, comes in, deals with the issues, grabs the work orders, gets out, talks to the people, and gets the job done. And April, do you want to expand on that a little bit for me also?
Of course. Joe has been a wonderful part of the team. He, again, is another one that gets a lot of compliments from our customers for his professionalism. And we just really appreciate Joe and his expertise. He's done a really great job.
I always love talking to Joe when he comes into the office. So thanks, Joe. And 14 years, that's a long time too. One more and you'll be up there to 15. You'll be up there with Greg.
I gotta say is just thank you, and thank you for the opportunity you guys gave me. I really grew with this company, and I appreciate this company very much. Thank you, guys.
Been fun working with you, my friend. Shane is not here today, I don't think, so we'll have to pass on. But Shane is has been with the district for 15 years, and from the Palm Springs area. Has tremendously talented kids and a wonderful family. His son is a masterful basketball player, and Shane's always been a good close person, and that's. I don't know if you want to say anything more, Lee, or anything about Shane.
You covered most of it, Shane. He's been out on injury since I haven't seen him since May, so we kind of miss him.
So with that said, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, congratulations, everybody. And thank you for all your hard work for Mission Springs Water District.
Quick question. We haven't been having in-person meetings for, a long time. Have our milestone year employees received their pens?
Oh, I had a note down here that when I'll talk to Oriana, usually we have been doing that during the all hands meeting. So we have those quarterly. Oh, yeah, yes. Yeah, we'll make sure that Greg gets it. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's a nice group. Congratulations, everybody. Okay, item number 7, Association of California Water Agencies Region 9 election. Okay, I had a chance to listen to the meeting over the weekend, and I know you guys kind of had some confusion on this one, and Ivan, you were correct with what you said. I just thought I'd give you a little brief rundown. Dory, can you put that Aqua Region 9 rules and regulations on the screen for me? Thank you. Okay, this is the rules and regulations and of Region 9, Aqua Region 9 rules and regulations, and this is the election that is on our agenda today. And as you can see on this, Region 9 is broken up into a western area. The list of all the or the water districts that are on that side, the western side, and then the arid side is the rest of the water districts in the desert areas and stuff. And how the rules go is that you have a chair and a vice chair and then 5 board members. The chair and the vice chair, they flop back and forth. If let's say this year, the chair, it comes from the western region. Therefore, the vice chair has to come from the arid region, the arid area. So, and then next year would be the opposite. It would be the chair that the arid vice president would usually go into then become the chair of the western. And the western area then would be the vice chair. Did that make sense? Did I say that right? Anyway, okay, so I just thought I'd throw that out there so you guys kind of understood how it went. So I was part of the nominating committee, and there was 7 open seats, and there was 7 people who applied. And they also on their application, they can put which position they're applying for, their first choice, second choice, third choice type thing. And so everybody was accommodated by what they wanted, except for the 2 that qualified for the chair. And that would be Harvey Ryan and James Morales. And the nominating committee had a discussion about that. And we kind of decided that Harvey it was more or less his turn per se. And then James would could actually step into that seat next time if he'd like to. So that's kind of where we left it. So the nominating committee, the slate of officers for the nominating committee, is that listed in here?
Yes, it is.
Okay, there it is. Okay.
That was convenient that everybody did get a spot.
Yeah, it was. It was actually kind of an easy nominating committee this year. But Region 9, we don't have an issue trying to find people to get in those seats. A lot of regions can't get people to actually want to be in the seats. But anyway, so either we vote on the nominating committee's recommended slate, or if the only other one, as Ivan had said at the study session, would be Harvey for, if you wanted to change, I mean, excuse me, you would change James and Harvey's seat. So I will entertain a motion.
I move that we go with the nominating committee's recommended slate.
I'll second it.
Okay, anybody have any comments on this? Anybody like to say anything?
I can't support allowing the young lady from the other side of the valley after her ridiculous statements against an elected official to get my vote. So I'll be abstaining. Thank you.
Okay, and just for information purposes, another member of the nominating committee was an IID person from IID, and they never had any problems with what that, just to throw that out there. Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor. Roll call vote, please.
Director Sewell,
Yes.
Director Grasha, you're abstaining?
I'm going to vote no.
No, thank you. Director Duncan,
Yes.
Vice President Martin,
Yes.
President Wright.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, item number 8, resolution 2021-14, certification and adoption of the final initial study and mitigated negative deck for the Vista Reservoir #2 project. Mr. General Manager.
We have nothing more to add. It's fairly straightforward. I think we have Caitlin here if you have any questions. So,
Okay, does any board members have any questions? Randy, if you guys do, just let me know.
No.
Director Grasha?
No questions.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2021-14.
So moved.
Roll call vote, please.
Sorry, was that second by Director Duncan?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Sewell,
Yes.
Director Grasha,
Yes.
Director Duncan,
Yes.
Vice President Martin,
Yes.
President Wright.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, item number 9, resolution 2021-15, certification of adoption of the final initial study and mitigated negative declaration for the groundwater quality protection project for areas H and I sewer improvement project.
okay. Again, nothing additional to add. We've been working on this H&I sewer improvement project for quite some time. We're anxious to get it moving, and the sequel is, of course, required. Again, I apologize. Kate, this is the one Caitlin we referred to in her introduction. So I don't have anything more to add unless you have some questions.
No, did I just ask for questions? Yeah. Okay, you guys have any questions? You have Director Grasha?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, so item number 9, I'll entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2021-15.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Director Sewell,
Yes.
Director Grasha,
Yes.
Director Duncan,
Yes.
Vice President Martin,
Yes.
President Wright.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
You.
Can I interrupt one more time for 1 minute, please?
Yes.
It's like the 3rd time this meeting I've done that. I know this is not the right place, but I just looked up and I happened to notice that Jan Pai is on the Zoom with us.
Yeah.
I want to say,
Welcome.
I want to recognize she's there and obviously feeling better if she's attending our meeting. So best wishes, J Dan.
Thank you.
Hi, Jan. Welcome.
Hi, Jan.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I was thinking about that too. Okay, so item number 10, acceptance of the North Indian Canyon Sewer Project.
And this also includes release of the retention. The project went fairly well. Very limited change orders. I think $18,220.12.
That's not bad.
No. Did you have, and nothing more really to add.
Okay,
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Danny, with this project?
no, no.
Okay.
None.
Do you have any questions, Ivan?
I just make a comment that thank you to staff for working with these outside agencies and seeing that this was a good time for us to put in the sewer prior to their paving and widening of the road. So I'm glad we are doing it this way and not tearing up the road in a year or two. Thank you.
Very good, Randy.
No.
No. Mr. Grasha?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, well then I'll entertain a motion to approve staff's recommendation for item number 10. How about that?
So moved.
Second?
Well, roll call vote, please.
Director Sewell,
Yes.
Director Grasha,
Yes.
Director Duncan,
Yes.
Vice President Martin,
Yes.
President Wright.
Aye,
Thank you. Motion passes.
thank you. Okay, now we have discussion items. I know you guys did some of these on Thursday. Critical Service Center Administration Building update.
We did not do this one, but the other two, you do not, there's no additional information that we have for
Okay.
12 and 13, so you can move.
So number
past
11,
those.
we're gonna
But
do that
number
now?
11, Brian was going to present today, but he was selected, had the honor of being selected a jurist in a trial.
Yeah.
So we did have a meeting, a kickoff meeting on August 19th. And I was so impressed with how this organization approached this in sort of an organized, methodical progression. You'll start to see that. We discussed a number of things at this meeting, and it went on for several hours. The highlights of that meeting were that we will set a tour of the East Valley Water District's building. We originally wanted to do that in September. I'm excited about doing that. I'd love to have you all there when we do. We're going to organize that so we can go. However, they aren't open to the public yet. So as soon as East Valley tells us they're open to the public, we will schedule a tour of that, because that gives you a really good idea of what a campus is like, and a really well-designed campus. And it was so impressive. You'll be interested. Y'all are going to have to fill out a questionnaire. Staff is going to all have to fill out a questionnaire. It's going to be a lot of fun to move forward with this building. We reviewed the existing staff sizes and the future needs. But the other thing that was interesting was that we talked about the safety issues that we had to integrate into the plan, the plant design. You know, there's a certain level of safety and separation between customers and the general manager, and it's quite a science, actually. And it was interesting that they brought that concept into the review. We're going to look at other structural issues there that we're starting to gather information on. They're in an information gathering mode, and that's going to take some time. But once we're done, then they'll have that information. We can start bringing this together. They did give us a couple preliminary layouts, but they weren't happy with them. And it was kind of interesting in that even the city seemed not to be happy with the parking out in front. I didn't realize they would even have an issue there, but we learned those things as we moved through the process. We looked at the warehouse, the chemical storage, our maintenance bays, the flow of traffic, loading and unloading our materials. It's good. You will get questionnaires. The board will have questions, and it's a short one. It'll be fun for you to fill it out. And the staff will all have questions, and it'll give them an idea of what concepts they need to focus on, something they may not have seen. The next steps is, of course, have the tour that we're going to have, and as soon as we get, and then secondly, we'll get those questionnaires out to you like this week. Okay. All right.
Okay, yeah, look forward to taking that field trip.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I don't think you guys have any comments on that. How about you, Steve?
I'm happy to hear the comments that I've heard. I wished I had heard more about how we won't be able to fit all the great ideas we have into such a small lot with a small frontage. I'm still concerned that that location isn't going to work out, but I guess we can continue down this road and tell the people that know better weigh in on that subject. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we have the consent agenda items 14, approval of the minutes, 15, registrar of demands, and board compensation for the October 8th Palm Springs Unified School District, which I see that Ivan and I are signed up for. I'm going to do it, yes, even though it went virtual. I was kind of disappointed, but I'll still do it. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agendas items. Anybody?
So moved.
Second.
Did you say second?
Second, yes.
That's what I thought. So the second was Director Grashaw. Roll call vote, please.
Director Sewell,
Yes.
Director Grasha,
Yes.
Director Duncan,
Yes.
Vice President Martin,
Yes.
President Wright.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
Before we move on, President Wright,
Yes.
Ms. Swallam, I just wanted to remind you that the GSP update on Thursday we skipped because President Wright wasn't present.
Oh, is Steve here?
He is.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, well, then I take that back. Steve
Oh.
will make a presentation on that.
And I knew that too, and I just let you lead me on, Arden.
I apologize, my fault.
Sorry. I knew you were there, Steve. I knew what you're there for, but we just passed you right on by. Anyway, okay, thank you, Dory.
So Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah,
Oh,
so we'll go
great.
back to item number 12.
Okay, well, thank you, President Wright and directors. I do have about a 20-minute presentation for you. It's about 25 slides. And it's really just walking through the alternative plan update process that we've done to date. So with that, I'm gonna turn off my video sharing and share my screen just to limit any service interruptions. So bear with me. Okay. All right, can everyone see the presentation?
I can, yes.
Okay. So a little bit of background. SGMA is the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, and it was signed into law in 2014. And it provides the framework for sustainable groundwater management in the state of California over the next 20 years.
Excuse me, Steve. Steve, wait a second. A correction. We're on, I said item 12. We're on item 13 now, in case anybody's following. Groundwater State Sustainability Plan Update. I said the wrong number. So go ahead. Sorry, Steve.
Okay, not a problem, President Wright. So in order to get to a sustainable groundwater basin, DWR has requested that groundwater sustainability agencies prepare a groundwater sustainability plan or an alternative plan and annual reports that are going to demonstrate your compliance towards sustainable management over the next 20 years. For this basin, for the Mission Creek subbasin anyway, and the Indio subbasin, they already had a pretty robust groundwater management plan in place before SGMA was passed. So through a process, we got both of those plans and what's called a bridge document approved as alternative plans. And all that means is DWR is accepting of our existing work in the groundwater management plan to be consistent with requirements of a groundwater sustainability plan. In the far west end of the basin, we do touch into the San Gorgonio Pass subbasin, and that subbasin did not have an existing groundwater management plan. So for that basin, we're actually working on a groundwater sustainability plan. So we have one GSP we're working on and 2 alternative plans. For the Mission Creek subbasin, what you see in front of you is a map of the planning area outlined in green. And that's the extent of what the plan is going to look into for sustainable groundwater management. So we need to know what the influences are of, excuse me, let me back up. These blue dashed lines are roughly the fault lines or the lines separating the subbasins within the greater Coachella Valley subbasin. So up here in the north, you have the Desert Hot Springs subbasin. In the middle, you have the Mission Creek subbasin. And over here, you have the Garnet Hill sub area, if you can see my cursor. And then below that and extending to the Salton Sea is the greater Indio subbasin. I'll get to the San Antonio Pass subbasin in a couple slides. So we're only required to have Sigma compliance for the Mission Creek subbasin, but to understand what the impacts are to the Mission Creek subbasin, we need to look at what's happening in the Desert Hot Springs subbasin with flows potentially coming into the Mission Creek subbasin and also flows leaving the subbasin either through the Indio Hills and into the Indio subbasin or through Garnet Hill sub area and into the Indio subbasin. Also of note, for the Mission Creek subbasin, Mission Springs is a member of the management committee, and that came out of the 2004 settlement agreement with DWA and CVWD. So it's a collaborative effort to prepare the alternative plan update for this subbasin with Coachella Valley Water District and Desert Water Agency. We're required to prepare the plan and submit it to DWR by January 1st. For the Indio subbasin, again, Indio is required to have deemed a medium priority basin under Sigma, so it's required to have an alternative plan update. The planning area shown is in this bolder black line that outlines again the western portion of the Indio subbasin and the eastern portion of the Indio subbasin. Now, for this process, Mission Springs is not a. Oh, excuse me. Let me pause real quick. There's a question by Director Gracia.
Well, I've never raised the hand raise. So yeah, I did have a question. I thought this was a good time to try that out. Have you done any research that can be relied upon as far in regard to incursion from the Desert Hot Springs subbasin into the Mission Creek subbasin? And if so, can you kind of touch on that a little so we can understand what we're doing to keep track of that? It's been one concern of mine as potentially a reason why we're seeing such increased numbers in water hardness or salinity in some of our practical tests around the community.
So I don't have that number in front of me, but yes, the model, which I'll show in a few slides or a little bit further through their presentation, the model for the Mission Creek subbasin, the groundwater model, does include the area shown here. So we are looking at inflows from mountain front recharge into not just Mission Creek, but the Desert Hot Springs subbasin, and overflow from Desert Hot Springs subbasin into Mission Creek subbasin. So when we talk about groundwater levels and a sustainable groundwater level, that also includes looking at if Mission Creek groundwater levels drop, are we inducing additional flows from the Desert Hot Springs subbasin into Mission Creek that may degrade water quality? Now, that hasn't been found to be the case. It's relatively low inflow from Desert Hot Springs subbasin, but I'd like to maybe defer that until later in the presentation when I talk about groundwater flow and storage. But that is something that, yes, we have looked at. So for the Indio subbasin, Mission Springs is not a groundwater sustainability agency or a part of a management committee for the Indio subbasin plan. So we are involved in that process as a stakeholder. So we've been able to attend the roughly quarterly workshops during the plan development process. And once the public draft is released, we'll be able to review and comment on the public draft. That's the plan itself. It's a collaborative effort between CVWD, CWA, DWA, and IWA. That plan is on a very similar timeline to the Mission Creek alternative plan, and that it's getting ready for public release to review the plan, and it's due to DWR by January 1st. And then what's shown in front of you, you may not be as familiar with because we don't get too much work in the San Antonio Pass subbasin, but this is generally the outline of the San Antonio Pass subbasin is shown in this dashed kind of orange boundary, and that's really our planning area. It overlies the city of Banning. Cabazon area and Whitewater and a portion of the Whitewater area. And over here on the far east side, you see this kind of notch out, and this is a 1 by 1 square mile where Mission Springs service area extends into the San Gorgonio Pass subbasin. In addition, there's a 3 square mile area here, but since the district is not currently a GSA, this area is under DWA's purview as a groundwater sustainability agency. So Mission Springs is really only involved in this 1 by 1 square mile within the San Gorgonio Pass subbasin. The San Gorgonio Pass subbasin is a medium priority basin. And again, we are a groundwater sustainability agency as part of this plan and this plan update. Let's see, this plan is a collaborative effort between San Gorgonio Pass Water Agency, the City of Banning, Desert Water Agency, Cabazon Water District, and Banning Heights Mutual Water Company. This plan is a groundwater sustainability plan, so it's on a slightly delayed timeline, and it's not due to DWR until January 31st of next year. The primary focus of my presentation today is going to be on the Mission Creek subbasin. I think that's the biggest, obviously our biggest basin. We produce, I think, 98% of our water from the Mission Creek subbasin. And there's a lot of information to cover from both plans, but again, today my focus is tailoring the presentation on the Mission Creek subbasin. Any questions so far?
Yeah, one on the, if you want to back up to that last slide. Do you know if San Gorgonio imports Delta water? I believe they're at least one of the communities in their area is doing that, and I just wondered if maybe you could touch on that a little bit.
Certainly, Director Gracia. San Gorgonio Pass Water Agency is a state water project contractor, and they do import state water project water directly. However, that usually occurs kind of over on the western portion as it's recharged in basins in the city of Beaumont.
Right, and that's Delta water. That's not river water.
Correct. That is Delta water. It's not Colorado River water. It's a direct connection from the aqueducts coming from up north.
Right. And that seems like a connection that's not that far away from us. And there was a comment made recently by one of our neighboring agencies that it would cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 billion to connect up to that up to that section of the is that the East Branch, I think it's called. There was a time when it was going to be 100 million to get all the way across to the lake where it used to terminate. I forget the name of the lake up past big on the other side of the San Bernardino National Forest.
I think Silverwood.
That's it, right? So, you know, I listened to their presentation a couple of days ago, and the some of the information that they were giving was just outlandish, and it struck me as almost my point is that our neighboring agencies are getting Delta water, and it didn't cost them $2 billion to get it. And for the Desert Water Agency, who seems to have a thirst for river water and not a thirst to do the job they were created to do, and that's to get Delta water into our valley, it disturbs me. I don't know if other board members here or anywhere else understand the nuances of that, but it cuts in absolute half the lifespan of our aquifer to be able to. It's like poisoning your liver. The patient dies every time. You can't save it, and that's what they're doing by what they're doing. And I want people to know that I'm opposed to what they're doing, and it should be brought up at every opportunity. Thank you for letting me interrupt. I will not interrupt you anymore. I don't think. I hope not. Anyway, thank you.
Not a problem, Director Gracia. I intended this to be an interactive presentation, so if any comments or questions come up during, please feel free to interrupt, and I'll do my best to address them. Regarding the plan update and development process, so as you know, for Mission Creek Subbasin, we had an existing groundwater management plan that DWR approved. So first we do an assessment of the existing plan and the plan assumptions, and then we jump in a little bit further and look at the water demand forecasts. We look at population projections. Are there any updates from when we originally prepared the plan back in around 2010 to 2013 when it was approved? We look at city and county general plans to infer information about development and population projections. And we look at conservation. There's been a lot of work on water conservation over the last decade that's reduced what the demand is for the current population. Next, we look at water supply projections. We look at state water project supplies, their reliability. We look at supplemental and recycled water possibilities. When those may come to fruition, it would help offset the demands on potable water. We look at surface water and groundwater. Next, we look at DWR's recommendations. So when DWR approved our alternative plan back in 2019, what they did is they gave us an assessment and some corrections or additional items they wanted us to dig into further in this alternative plan update. And part of that was evaluating the Indio Hills area. And if you allow me to back up, the Indio Hills area is down here kind of in the southeast portion of the Mission Creek subbasin. I'm circling it with my cursor. And that was treated as really a no flow zone because of its geologic structure, meaning it's almost like bedrock, but it's not. It is semi-permeable. It's not a solid bedrock, and there is some water transfer happening through Indio Hills. So that was one item DWR said, hey, we want you guys to look into that more and evaluate that Indio Hills area. Don't just treat it as a no flow zone, since we know that there may be flows going through that area. In addition, they wanted us to incorporate the approved salt nutrient management plan. Well, the salt nutrient management plan is on a much longer timeline to get an update. So what we've done is we've made a lot of reference to and have a lot of discussion regarding TDS impacts and nitrate impacts in the basin. But what the plan ultimately does is say that on the next 5-year update, when we have that approved salt nutrient management plan, we'll have better information to include in this alternative plan regarding salt nutrient management. They asked us to provide reasoning and evidence for maintaining groundwater levels at or above 2009 levels, which I'll touch on later when we get into groundwater level discussion. And they asked us to incorporate the sustainable management criteria for the groundwater levels to demonstrate compliance with 2009 water levels. And I'll touch on that in my next slide, or excuse me, in a couple slides. And then they asked us to basically update your projects and management actions on how you're going to be achieving sustainable management over the next 20 years. And if you have any new project or project and management actions, go ahead and incorporate them to the new plan. So first, what's in front of you is a bar graph showing population projections. And the dashed line across the top, that was the original population projections identified in the 2013 groundwater management plan. And as you can see, over the first 5-year period, it expected a pretty rapid increase in population and then a more stable growth over the next 20 to 25 years. That never came to fruition. As you can see right here, I think this is 2016, the population was just under 50,000. It didn't get up above 60,000 as initially envisioned. So we knew we had a kind of a reset here, and then we knew what the actual population is in 2020. So we knew what that actual is, and again, we had a pretty big delta. So what we did is we revised the population projections to follow Southern California Association of Governments population projections. And they work both with Riverside County and the city of Desert Hot Springs to prepare these population projections, and they're generally used for all planning purposes and general plans and whatnot. So as you can see, we only expect to get up to, by 2045, just over 80, maybe 90,000, not up into about 110,000 with this plan. So that was a big change in what the projected demands are throughout the district service area going forward. Next, here's a graph of the water demand projections. You can see here in green is the existing municipal demand. In orange is the unmetered production. That's generally considered water loss. So there's a certain percentage of loss in any water system, and it's generally around 10% plus or minus. and that's what the orange represents. The gray represents private metered production, and then the blue represents municipal demands. So if you look at the green area, you can kind of see that it's decreasing going forward, and that's generally due to conservation. So there's expected conservation to happen going forward with the existing demands to help reduce the demands on potable water. That's why that green decreases going forward. And what we evaluated was called passive conservation. And the concept is that indoor water fixtures will inevitably be replaced. Same with indoor appliances over the next 20 years with higher efficiency models. And that's generally based on the average year that the homes were built inside Mission Springs service area. And again, that kind of rolling 20-year timeline on when we'd expect the different water fixtures and appliances to be replaced. And they'll inherently have better or lower water consumption than existing units. So you can see in 2020, we had a demand of roughly 15,000 acre feet per year, and that's expected to go up to about 20,700 acre feet per year by 2045, which is roughly a 37% increase in demand. So going back, or not going back, but the population is expected to increase by about 66% between now and 2045. And we're only expecting about a 37% increase in water demand over that same period. So that shows you that we're going to be doing a much better job as water providers in enforcing conservation and making conservation a way of life as we go forward, so that we can continue to grow in the desert region where we live. Any questions so far?
Nope.
Okay. Regarding the water supply projections, we looked at several different avenues. We looked at groundwater. That's our primary source of water. We pump 100% of our water from the groundwater table. And we looked at surface water. And really, it's the mountain front recharge. So it's the rainfall coming off the local mountains that really do recharge the subbasin. And if we're looking at a couple different hydrologic cycles, which I'll touch on in a little bit, you know, the last 25 years, we've only had about an average of 12,000 acre feet per year of mountain front recharge or of rainfall. But over a 50-year period, that's roughly 18,000 acre feet per year. And what that is the most recent 25-year, it really shows the impacts of climate change on the rain and hydraulic cycle. So when we start talking about modeling efforts and how we look at a climate change scenario, what that's showing you is that, you know, with climate change and what's expected going forward, we're probably going to be looking at an average rainfall of about 12,000 acre feet per year, not 18,000. Next, we look at imported water. That's the recharge, and as part of the imported water is not just state water project allocations and how it's exchanged with Colorado River water, but what the recharge allocations are between the Whitewater River groundwater recharge facility and the Mission Creek groundwater recharge facility. That's currently split per the 04 settlement agreement and different agreements between CVWD and DWA. Right now, about 8% of the supplies received by the agencies, 8% gets diverted up to Mission Creek for recharge, and the other 92% goes to Whitewater. And that's based off of your production. So they look at the Mission Springs or Mission Creek area benefit and the West Whitewater area benefit. And depending on how much water production you've had in the last year, they split this allocation a certain percentage. Again, that's been averaging about 8%. But as we go forward towards 2045, that's actually expected to increase by 10%. So we're actually expected to grow a little bit faster than some of the other areas in the West Whitewater region in Indio Subbasin. And that's going to generate an additional allocation or a little bit bigger percentage coming to replenish the groundwater basin. And lastly, we looked at recycled water. And with the completion of the regional water reclamation facility, as it says in its name, we're going to be looking at reclamation options to begin offsetting additional groundwater production with recycled water. And that's expected to occur in the next 10 years. This graph shows you the state water project reliability. In orange is the table A deliveries. In yellow is the Lake Paris Seepage Recovery Project. In blue is the site's reservoir. And in green is the Delta Conveyance Facility project. First off, so DWR prepares, I think it's a biannual report that's called the DWR Capability State Water Project Delivery Capability Report. And they've generally projected about 50%, 58% reliability in state water project deliveries over the history of state water project deliveries. And they kind of looked at that as decreasing to about 52% without the Delta Conveyance Facility project. You've heard about that in some fashion over the last decade with the twin tunnel project, single tunnel, what have you. But we know some kind of Delta Conveyance project is needed to increase the reliability in state water project deliveries to all state water project contractors. However, for the plan, being conservative, we looked at a more recent snapshot, not the entire history, and over a more recent period, we've only been averaging about 45% reliability in state water project supplies. Climate change could really further reduce reliability in state water project deliveries without the Delta Conveyance Facility project. And then in addition to the Delta Conveyance Facility project, which is expected to come online sometime around 2042, which is why you see this bump in the state water project deliveries, or it's actually improving the reliability of the system. There are two other projects, a Lake Paris Seepage Recovery Project. And what's happening at Lake Paris, there's a bunch of seepage, natural seepage out of the dam, underneath the dam, back into the groundwater table. And DWA is participating in a project to, I believe they're putting in a series of wells to recover that water. And that's going to give us a little bit of increase, as you see in this yellow bump around 2025, an increase in state water project supplies, as well as the Sites Reservoir project. I think both the state water contractors are participating in it. That would increase, provide additional supply sometime around 2035. So that's really what the picture looks like for state water project reliability and imported water supplies going forward over the next 25 years. Now, before we get into the water model, I just want to mention the state sustainable management criteria. So DWR wants all, or under Sigma, I should say, you're required to monitor all sustainable management criteria. So again, how are we going to evaluate that you're achieving sustainability and maintaining compliance with Sigma requirements going forward? Well, DWR wants you to look at these 6 different areas that may result in what they call undesirable results. So they want you to evaluate groundwater level declines and land subsidence, groundwater storage reductions, and interconnected surface water depletions, groundwater quality degradation, and lastly, seawater intrusion. Because we are not connected to any oceans, we don't evaluate seawater intrusion, but we do evaluate the other 5 sustainable management criteria. Part of the tools for once we completed the water model was to look at each of these sustainable management criteria individually and evaluate how our production, our demands on the groundwater basin may affect these different criteria. So one of the questions Director Grasha brought up is, yes, we do look at water quality degradation. By decreasing or by changing levels in Mission Creek, are we potentially degrading the water quality by inducing flows or additional flows from the Desert Hot Springs subbasin? So that's part of our sustainable management criteria that's fully evaluated in the plan. So now I'm going to get into the water model. The Mission Creek groundwater model, again, you saw this map at the beginning, and out in green, the outline is the planning area. And within the planning area is the groundwater model domain. So that's the extent of the groundwater model. And you can see all these notches kind of in the north and northeast side. And what those are is kind of tracking up the canyons to get a better idea on mountain front recharge and flows coming down the various creeks. To the west, it extends up Mission Creek, but not much higher all the way into Mission Creek because there's not much value gained in that system. And then it extends up into the Whitewater River here to the west, and it incorporates the Garnet Hill sub area. So again, we know these 3 subbasins are interconnected, so we're really looking at what's happening in between all 3 of them. In addition, I want to note that the Garnet Hill sub area, DWR considers that part of the Indio subbasin, so we do not evaluate sustainable management criteria for the Garnet Hill sub area. That's done as part of the Indio plan. In addition, we've coordinated with the consultants preparing the NDO plan with what the boundary fault condition is here. So we didn't look at NDO per se, but we worked with our consultants worked with the NDO consultants to evaluate what's happening between the groundwater flows between each subbasin. Any questions on that?
Just want to make the point on your last slide, it highlighted 6 of the things you look at. And, you know, one of the things I've been bringing up during my brief time here, was our need to potentially look at land subsidence in our district, and which has never been done. And understand that Desert Water heard my appeal and has entered into an agreement with CVWD to ask the Corps of Engineers to place a GPS monitoring unit somewhere within our service area to study land subsidence in the Mission Creek aquifer. So I'm pleased to be able to add that to the discussion. We'll see where that goes from here, and hopefully they will be able to confirm the things that the district has been saying that I'm not certain of. But that's good news for us and good news for our community and good news for the plan. Thank you very much.
Well, Steve, this would be a good time to bring up the fact that we are, all 3 of us, DWA, CVWD, and MSWD, all agreed to split the cost of that subsidence study, but they haven't. And they are going to get an MOU together. Do you want to elaborate on that, Steve?
Yeah, I'd like to wait. We're on slide 11. I got about 10 slides. I have a slide on land subsidence. So I'd like to wait and we can maybe chat about it then if that's all right with the general manager and the directors.
Yes, that's fine. I wanted Director Gracia to know that we all 3 went in on that at the same time.
Certainly, and I you know, again, my next several slides, I'm just setting up the water model. We're going to look at each of these sustainable criteria, and I do have a discussion and some figures on land subsidence and what we've been doing the last 4 years and what we're planning to do going forward to get a better idea on what's happening with respect to land subsidence.
Question from a couple of slides back real quick. Obviously, I'm not an engineer.
Sorry, which one, Director Duncan, so I can go there.
A couple of slides back, you're talking about putting in recovery wells. Yes. near the lake. There we go. If you put in wells around Lake Paris to recover that water, doesn't that create a void and encourage more water loss to fill that void?
That's a great question, Director Duncan. I don't know I don't have all that information, but the way I understand it is these are shallow wells and that water is continuing to seep out regardless. So we're going to only be pumping out the amount that is naturally seeping outside and underneath the dam. So I believe it's a shallow well, like I said, and it's only going to pump at the rate in which we're losing water naturally through the groundwater table. So it won't necessarily induce more because we're matching the rate of pumping with what's coming out. We're just recovering that from going any further and being lost into the adjacent groundwater basin.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Sure. So after the groundwater model is prepared, we go and do model calibration and what a lot of folks refer to as ground truthing. So we have this great numerical water model. We put a bunch of information in it, but how do we know it's accurate? So what we do is prepare several hydrographs. And what you see in front of you is the observed head condition on several wells throughout the Mission Creek subbasin. And those are kind of shown in these black dots. So what we do once the groundwater model is prepared during the calibration process is we look at the simulated groundwater levels in each of the wells to see how well it's lining up with the observed groundwater levels in the that we routinely monitor. So you can see most of the wells, they track relatively well. You can see, certain dips and rises in the groundwater level that are mimicked by the blue line. That's the groundwater model. And then you see maybe a few others that they're generally lining up, but they may not be the most accurate, or that there's, it's not a perfect model, if you will. There's a little bit of delta between these. So yeah, it's tracking properly, but for whatever reason, the model's kind of simulating a few feet higher in the groundwater level than what we're actually seeing in the basin. So really it's a balancing act between these variances to do your best to mimic what's happening out in the field versus what's happening in your model. And once you know that it's calibrated, then you can kind of know, okay, well, if we simulate going forward with future demands, with future recharge and future mountain front recharge, what do we expect to happen with groundwater levels in the basin? If you'll note, the two that are kind of not the most accurate, those are happening in the Garnet Hill sub area. And that's likely due to the proximity of both of these wells to the fault lines. In addition, as I mentioned on the previous slide, the calibration was really coordinated between the Indio subbasin modeling team and the Mission Creek subbasin modeling team. And really, you know, these, I'll just say they were calibrated a little bit closer, but once we started collaborating with the Indio team, we had to make some adjustments because on all the wells on their side, on the south side, inside Indio subbasin, they had different parameters on what they expect coming through Garnet Hill that helped all their hydrographs line up a little bit better. So really it was a balancing act between both basins to see, okay, how can we best fit the information with those wells? But at the end of the day, we're really focused on the wells shown in yellow here because those are our Mission Creek subbasin wells. Most models can be considered well calibrated if they have a normalized root mean square of less than 10%. I don't want to get into the details because frankly, I don't know them and the modelers aren't on the call with us today to bail me out. But this model itself, it actually has a calibration or a root mean square of 3.7%. So again, well-calibrated models about less than 10%, and we're at 3.7%. So all things considered, this is a very well-calibrated model. So that means we have a lot of confidence in what the model results are going to show us going forward. Now, in modeling scenarios, we looked at 4 different scenarios. We looked at a baseline scenario that looked at, hey, if we just maintain the status quo with current supplies, with whatever projects we've already completed, and we include the completion of the regional water reclamation facility, because that's already in progress, what would happen in the subbasin? If we did nothing else, what would happen as we go forward? We looked at that same scenario with climate change. So climate change, again, I mentioned that a little bit earlier about these hydraulic cycles, and that the most recent 25-year hydraulic cycle had about 4,000 or 5,000 acre feet per year less recharge or less rainfall than the overall 50-year average. So under a climate change condition in this modeling scenario, we looked at back-to-back 25-year dry cycles. So what that means is we took that lower rainfall expected over the last 25 years and mirrored it directly in front of the drought that we're currently in. So that's really putting a stress on the model and a stress in what's going to happen or what we may think will happen if we continue to face an ongoing drought condition. We looked at a near-term project and management action scenario with climate change. So we looked at not only bringing the regional water reclamation facility online, but actually producing recycled water and reusing that water back in the Mission Creek subbasin. In addition, we looked at a future scenario of project and management actions and the supplies with climate change. So we looked at the projected supplies and projects going out to 2045. So that includes the Lake Paris Seepage Recovery, the Sites Reservoir, and the Delta Conveyance Facility project. And for Mission Springs, the completion of our groundwater quality protection program. So this scenario assumes that by that point, we've abated the remaining roughly 3,000 septic tanks, and those are all connected to our wastewater treatment system. And those are either being treated and disposed of at Horton or treated and recovered in the form of recycled water and put back into the Mission Creek subbasin. So we looked at the hydrographs, and now we're going to look at, okay, how are we evaluating those hydrographs going forward? In the 2013 plan, it established that the 2009 water level was going to be our objective. So generally speaking, the 2009 water level in all of the district's production wells represented the lowest groundwater level that those wells have ever been faced with. So we knew if we could, and there had been no adverse impacts, meaning we weren't aware of any subsidence. We weren't aware of any outlying water quality conditions being induced by our pumping. We weren't aware of any wells going dry or private wells going dry. So we had a general consensus when that plan was prepared that as long as we maintain at 2009 levels or above, then we don't expect any adverse impacts to the groundwater basin. So again, DWR's recommendation, they said, well, that's great, but show us how you're monitoring that and how you're going to monitor how you meet that going forward. So what we come up with is called minimum thresholds and measurable objectives. So again, our objective, our minimum objective for managing the basin is this green line shown here. So on this representative well, groundwater levels have been declining to 2009, roughly 2009, when you really started to see the benefits of recharge. And we're using that as our objective. So our goal is to stay above the green line. But before we really have what's called adverse impacts or any negative impacts to the basin that we need to correct, we wanted to give ourselves a little bit of flexibility. And that's the minimum threshold. So this would be the lowest level we would allow the groundwater table to drop without negative impacts. And we did an evaluation of all the groundwater wells in Mission Creek Subbasin, and we used one standard deviation of the water levels between 2002 and 2019. So the standard deviation tells us what was the general drop during that time, or the average drop, and generally it ranged from about 2.3 feet to 16 feet across all the wells. So we took that average and applied it to almost all of our key wells that said, hey, this operational flexibility, we're going to give ourselves 7 feet. And that really is what we would, that gives us time, that if we start to drop below this measurable objectives, that gives us a few years to secure additional groundwater supplies, to reduce our consumption, to do some kind of management action to help correct it and get back above our measurable objective before we dip below our minimum threshold. So I know it's a lot of information coming at you. Any questions on that yet?
Well, yeah, on a question on a slide from one or two back on the sites project that Desert Water is participating in on our ratepayers' behalf. Can you maybe explain to us why we would be participating in that project if we don't expect to ever actually physically utilize that project? It's apparently going to cost a great deal of money and burden on our ratepayers, and it's curious to me that that our GSA is continuing with that project when there's no benefit to our community. I happen to think I know the answer that you might have, but I'm wanting to kind of confirm what I'm thinking.
Director Gracia, great question, but I do not have that information. I don't know. I don't have all the information about the site's reservoir and to what extent DWA is participating in it, other than I know that they are. But I think that question would probably be best directed to them. I know there's more information in the plan, but I don't have that in front of me to help answer your question.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Well, it's a lot of money, and that's a big. I'm looking forward to the answer myself. Thank you.
I'll try to add conceptually. If we get additional water supplies through the site's reservoir, that means we can get additional allocations from Colorado River. Again, conceptually, that's all I can really offer on the site's reservoir.
Well, that was what my assumption was as well. But it's a lot of money to pay for to end up being. It's against the law, actually. Bait and switch is a crime that you can go to jail for, and it's almost what they're doing. And in fact, I think it is and could very well be prosecuted as such. But we'll see how this shakes out. But it's underhanded and needs to be called out at every opportunity. Thank you.
So now we're getting into, we're in the downhill slope. So fret not, we're almost there. We've talked about what we did in the plan, what we did to evaluate, how we prepared the groundwater model, and ultimately what we're looking at. And what we did is we selected 9 key wells. And those key wells are shown with all these kind of circle targets here. And we looked at what those are considered our representative monitoring sites that we're going to use to monitor sustainability criteria. So every year as part of our annual report and every 5 years as part of this plan update, we'll be evaluating how we've met those 5 or 6, sustainable management criteria by looking at what's happening at these 9 groundwater levels. So we're not only looking at groundwater levels, but we use the groundwater level as a proxy to estimate groundwater storage. The 9 key wells were selected for spatial coverage, so trying to capture as far west as we have wells to cover and as far east as we have wells, and for wells that we do regular monitoring. So all of Mission Springs production wells, which several of these, 6 of the 9 are Mission Springs production wells, we monitor those monthly. So we have a good amount of information that was used to evaluate what the history of those wells were. And we know we're going to have a good history on those or be looking at those regularly, monitoring them going forward. In addition, these 9 key wells will be used in our annual report to show how we're meeting compliance with SGMA. And when we talked a little bit on the previous slide about this operational flexibility between your measurable objective and minimum threshold, we set the criteria on when we've kind of gone past and potentially caused harm to the basin, where we've caused significant and unreasonable, undesirable condition. So what we established that is that the level in 4 of these wells drops below the minimum threshold for 3 consecutive years. And again, that's something, a metric we're going to continue to track to see how well we're doing. And if we start to go into the negative, that gives us time to apply corrective action and get those wells back up and in the green, if you will. So these are those 9 key monitoring wells. And again, they're shown with the hydrograph, the groundwater elevation, and this is actual groundwater elevation data. And you can see how we set the measurable objective and minimum threshold for each. And generally, you can see that the minimum threshold or measurable objective was set somewhat at the 2009 groundwater level. Again, that was the historic low on almost all these wells. And then where we set the minimum threshold to give ourselves some operational flexibility. So you can really see that most of these wells are showing you there was a dip coming into that 2009. And then once the kind of recharge that started occurring in 2000 really made its way through the subbasin, you can see a response in the groundwater level. And those levels rebounding some and either kind of staying consistent, starting to stay consistent, or maybe coming back down on a downward trend. That kind of lets us know that, hey, we're in a drought cycle. Maybe we're not getting as much of that mountain front recharge, or state water project supplies aren't coming in as high as they were to the average reliability. But as you can see, all these wells have responded from that green line, that 2009 water level. Cherry picking 2 of those wells to look at groundwater levels, I picked well 35 and well 22. So you can see the simulated line in blue, which we've talked about and are observed in black on both of these wells. And then you can see the projections going forward. So right where these black dots end is right around 2020, around last year. And then you see the projections going forward. We talked about a baseline scenario, which is shown in magenta or pink. In that baseline scenario, what's really happening if we don't really do anything going forward? What happens with that baseline under a climate change scenario, again, with that kind of dashed dot line shown on your screen? Doesn't show too much happening at well 35 up in the north end of the basin, northwest end of the basin. That's really up gradient near where we're doing our groundwater recharge. But kind of right smack dab in the middle is well 22, right in the middle of the subbasin. You can see that if we continue to do nothing, we expect under a baseline scenario that those levels are going to drop below our measurable objective, below that 2009 level, and start approaching that minimum threshold, and potentially get us into trouble with sustainable management with DWR. So we know that we're going to have to do something going forward so that we don't have these groundwater levels on a downward trend and potentially continuing to drop below the groundwater level, or excuse me, the minimum threshold. In yellow orangish, kind of in the middle, this is the near term project. So this would be, or excuse me, this is just the baseline with the Mission Springs Regional Water Reclamation Facility coming online. So with that facility not only coming online, but us in 2030 starting to produce recycled water and recharge or reuse that recycled water back in the Mission Creek subbasin, you can really see what kind of benefit that brings to the Mission Creek subbasin. So that one project alone is, as you can see here, is really critical to the district's future in kind of helping manage the groundwater supplies and our groundwater future. And then lastly is the future project scenario, which includes all the state water project related projects, the completion of our groundwater quality protection program, and also includes the treatment plant and recharge that we talked about. And you can see the potential benefits that all those programs, if they come to fruition, have on the groundwater levels. So we're not just correcting and rebounding, but you see that rebound kind of continuous going forward, that we're actually improving our groundwater sustainability and our groundwater levels in the basin. Any questions on those?
No, I don't see anything, Steve. Really good information though. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, President Wright, if you were talking, can you talk in your microphone? I couldn't hear that.
I just said, I don't see anybody else who said that you're giving us some really good information here. Thank you.
Okay. Director Gracia, I'm
Sorry, I'm not on. I wasn't on. Sorry, Steve. Did you hear what I said?
I did hear you, yes.
Okay, sorry, my mic wasn't on.
I
Thanks,
have,
Ivan.
I have one comment, and
Okay.
you're right, it is an excellent presentation. But in the future, presentations that are going to be this detailed and complex should be done during a workshop and not during a general meeting. That's just my opinion on that. But it's a good, excellent presentation, a lot of valuable information. So.
Understood, Director Martin. I appreciate that feedback.
Anybody else question? No. Okay, go ahead, Steve. Thanks.
Okay. Now we look at groundwater storage. And there's a lot going on in this graph, but if you look at this zero line, anything above this zero line is water coming into the basin, and anything below the zero line is water leaving the basin. So water coming in, it's again that mountain front recharge, inflows in this kind of turquoise color from the Desert Hot Springs subbasin, and recharge shown here in kind of this yellowish orange. And what we're really looking at here is this pink, this purple line. And this is the cumulative change in storage in the basin. And you can see in a baseline scenario, again, starting with right here in 2020, we start right out with kind of a drier cycle because of climate change before we start to see these taller blue peaks, which is mountain front recharge or rainfall. So we start out over the next 5 or 6 years in dry cycles, and you see that storage level dropping and approaching zero. And until we start to get more of that mountain front recharge and more recovery, you see the groundwater levels kind of, the storage levels, excuse me, increase. And ultimately, and out up to 2070, we ended about 60,000 acre feet in cumulative storage in the basin. And that's just our baseline scenario. Now, if we look at a climate change scenario, you can kind of see that these graphs are exactly the same up until 2020, but you see this extended drought. You can see these blue lines representing mountain front recharge. They're much shorter on this side, and they're a little bit further in between than what you saw on the baseline scenario. So this is, again, looking at climate change, and under a kind of a very conservative climate change analysis, you see that those groundwater levels drop below zero, rebound a little bit, but continue to drop. And we actually end up in overdraft condition in 2070. So again, we know that we need to do something with respect to our water future going forward than the status quo to make sure we don't end up in that scenario. Looking at, again, the near term and future balance, near term being on the left, and that's just Mission Springs treatment plant project coming online. And then in the future, with all of the State Water Project and Mission Springs projects coming online, you kind of see that change in the purple line. And these are both under climate change scenarios. So as you previously saw, starting in 2020, you see a big decline coming down, approaching zero, but our projects help keep that storage, the cumulative change in storage, above going into an overdraft condition. In addition, in the future projects, we're kind of doing the same thing. You see those projects, it continues to drop, the cumulative change in storage, and then it starts to bump up when the projects come online. And then when the state water projects kind of kick on and give us that additional reliability or additional supplies, you see a much bigger benefit where we ultimately end with about 150,000 acre feet in net positive change in storage in the future. Now, a couple more slides to go. I just basically this one in land subsidence, water quality, and then we'll wrap up. Regarding land subsidence, so land subsidence is the vertical displacement of the ground surface. So is the ground surface moving? And if it's moving, is it moving elastic, like a rubber band where it can move up and down and respond? Or is it inelastic to where once these water levels or the land surface drops, there's no way to get that back? Regional displacement can happen for various reasons, but it's usually related to active faulting and groundwater production. What we found is that there's, non-permanent changes in groundwater levels may occur also from groundwater level changes. So if it's elastic subsidence, then it's not undesirable results. So what that means is, yes, you're pumping groundwater and that may have induced the ground surface to lower a little bit, but if you recharge that, that ground surface will come right back up to its original elevation. So how we've been tracking this as part of our Sigma annual report that we've been preparing since 2016 is we've looked at DWR's INSAR data. And that INSAR data is infometric synthetic aperture radar. And basically they're using satellite data to evaluate changes in the ground surface. And what we found from DWR's INSAR data, you'll see the period from 2015 to 2019. The darker blue is about a 0.25 increase in groundwater surface, whereas the light blue is a 0.25 foot decrease in groundwater surface. So we've been fluctuating about a half a foot roughly throughout the Mission Creek subbasin. And then, over the last 2 years, looking at just what was done in the last annual report, you can see that most of that's a dark blue. So you'll see that we've only kind of had a net positive increase in the land subsidence, or a net change in the groundwater surface that's come up a little bit since then. So what all this means is, using DWR's INSAR data, we have found that there's been no land subsidence throughout the Mission Creek subbasin. But there's a few issues with this DWR INSAR data. It's a large data area. They're looking at data at a statewide perspective, and there's data gaps. In addition, the only period that INSAR data is available, we've had relatively stable groundwater levels in the basin. So we don't know if there's land subsidence or not, because we don't have a big history of when we were coming up to 2009, before recharge really started to rebound groundwater levels. We don't really know what happened. So one of our project and management actions is to evaluate this in more depth. And as the general manager was alluding to, USGS, there's a USGS study. Now, USGS has been working with Coachella Valley Water District since about 1996 to investigate land subsidence in the Coachella Valley, but generally in the Indio subbasin. So what we're asking them to do with this update to the study is expand their reach or their analysis into the Mission Creek subbasin. And we're going to have them look at land surface elevations from 2015 to 2021, develop a subsidence monitoring plan. So how are we going to monitor land subsidence going forward? So we're going to be leaning on USGS to use their knowledge to help define the plan on how we're going to evaluate land subsidence going forward. They're going to detect and quantify land subsidence, or how we're going to go about detecting and quantifying land subsidence based on the plan that they prepare. And then we're going to evaluate the relationship between the changes in land surface elevations and groundwater levels at selected sites. So again, we've been relying the last 5 years on DWR data to monitor land subsidence. And then going forward, we're going to have a little bit more robust program. It's a separate subsidence monitoring plan that we'll be partnering with USGS on. Now, at our meeting last week with the other agencies, CVWD did note that their board did approve the contract with USGS. So they're currently working on a cost share agreement. And as soon as we have that cost share agreement, we'll be bringing that in front of you for consideration and approval, so that we can also enter into that agreement and help cost share in the work that's going to be done that will help benefit our evaluation of land subsidence. Any questions?
we did commit to participate in that, and just, just to give you some history there. So we did not know what the exact cost would be, which is why you haven't seen it in front of you.
Good point.
I don't have any questions, but I want, the concept is we're developing basically a process here. We're looking at the methodology. Now, with that said, we're very, very careful, and you can see how we get into arguments over this process, because that's going to dictate in many ways the outcome. So we're trying to be very careful to be sure that we have the accurate and appropriate way of doing this and monitoring it, because this is sort of the foundation in which we're going to look to manage the water through the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. Anything else, Steve?
General Manager Wallem, I'd like to add, if you look back at the groundwater level and how we expect the basin to respond under different scenarios and different projects we take on, it's really going to be a balancing act. We need to understand if we have land subsidence, water quality issues, lowering of groundwater levels, reduction in storage, and that's really going to help define where our projection is going forward. And that's going to determine how much money do we need to spend and how many projects do we need to do based on these 6 sustainable management criteria. So land subsidence being one of them. We need to do the study. We need to take on that work. We knew we needed to begin to evaluate land subsidence going forward. And if it's not an issue, then we know if we keep our groundwater levels above 2009, it shouldn't be an issue ever. But if we drop below that, then it may start to become an issue. So that's really how these sustainable management criteria play back into the analysis we did with the water model and the different modeling scenarios that were ran.
Very good. I would like to just point out that I found it really nice that the regional plant is playing a pretty big role in that last slide that you just had up there, as far as the.
I'm glad you noticed that.
Oh,
It
yeah.
has very,
right.
very big impact
It's a
on
big
our
impact,
ability to manage the water.
Yes. Good
The
thing. we
regional
started that
plant
10
is
years ago.
essential.
Yeah, it's a good thing we did that. Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, last sustainable management criteria we're looking at is groundwater quality. So throughout the Mission Creek Subbasin, there are certain constituents of concern that have popped up over the years that we're looking at, and those are arsenic, fluoride, uranium, hexavalent chromium, nitrate, and TDS. Over the last 5 years, there have been no MCL exceedances throughout the subbasin, and we're not aware of any point source contaminant plumes. So we're not aware of any PCEs, TCPs, any of that kind of legacy chemicals that were spilt at one time and are now being mobilized by recharge activities or pumping or anything of that nature. So what you see on the right are 2 graphs, the top one being for TDS, and this is looking at the TDS concentration in several wells on about 6 different wells. And then down here we have uranium activity in about 5 different wells in the subbasin. So this is all captured in the report, and what we looked at was, what's really going on and how we're going to start tracking that. But with respect to TDS, you can start to see maybe some increases in a couple of the wells we're looking at, but by and large, we defer action on rising TDS to the salt nutrient management plan. That's going to need to be a regional project, a regional program to manage salt nutrients throughout the Coachella Valley. So this plan doesn't do a whole lot to say how we're going to correct potential increases in TDS or what we're going to do. It just says, hey, it looks like it's starting to become an issue. So we're gonna see what comes out of the salt nutrient management plan and adhere to those requirements and any projects or management actions that are stipulated. Again, we're going to use that as our guiding document on how we treat and manage salt nutrients going forward. So that's all I really wanted to show with this one. So lastly, next steps, we'll be releasing the public drafts for all 3 plans in late September, early October. All 3 plans will be coming out for public review and public comment. And those have anywhere from a 30-day public review period for the alternative plans to, I think, 45 days for the groundwater sustainability plan. All 3 of those plans will have public workshops during the public review period. So we'll be giving a presentation very similar to what you saw today to the public and soliciting feedback from the public at those workshops. From there, we'll prepare the final plans, and then GSA and agency adoption for all 3 plans are shown here at the bottom. For the Mission Creek Subbasin, we'll be back on the December 20th board meeting asking you to adopt the Mission Creek alternative plan update. In addition, for the San Gorgonio Pass Groundwater Sustainability Plan, we'll be back at the January 18th board meeting asking for adoption for that. And then lastly, the Indio Subbasin Alternative Plan, there will be no action by the district since we are a stakeholder in that process. And then lastly, all 3 plans need to be submitted to DWR in January of next year. Vice President Martin, I know that was a long presentation. Forgive me for not breaking that out as a separate workshop, but that's really what the efforts have been so far on the alternative plan process in all 3 subbasins.
Thank you, Steve.
I had a question that he promised to answer, and I don't know that he got to it. I wondered if we could go back to one on the intrusion or incursions, I guess, from the Desert Hot Springs aquifer into our subbasin into the Mission Creek subbasin. Is that happening, and to what level?
So I don't show that too much in the presentation. There's a little bit more information, excuse me, in the detailed modeling scenario. But what I'm trying to show with the Mission Creek storage balance is that really under a baseline scenario and with the projects planned, we're keeping the groundwater levels, the groundwater storage above kind of an overdraft scenario. So that's not doing anything. As long as we keep those groundwater levels around where they've been historically, then we're not expecting to induce any new higher TDS groundwater from Desert Hot Springs into the Mission Creek subbasin.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Steve. That was very good. A lot of
Yes,
very enlightening.
excellent.
Thank you. Okay, on to number 17, I think. Am I right now? Is that right?
We already went over 17.
Thank you letter from
Thank you
Cheryl-
letter. Yeah, that
Cheryl
was the
McKenna.
tour.
That was very nice of him. And thank you very much for offering and taking him on that tour, you and your staff.
Yeah, when
that
the
was a big-
pandemic gets over, we'll probably do that a bit more and possibly invite him to do the Water 101.
I think taking people on that tour of that plant is probably a good idea for some VIPs and stuff too, that since the plant is going to be kind of front and center for a while now, I think that's probably a good idea. It really played a big role in how Mr. McKenna, now what he thinks about the wastewater treatment plant and the process out there.
It's very nice.
Well, especially in light of the fact that there was so much misinformation out
Exactly.
on social media, et cetera. It's important to get the truth out to some of these people, and
Yes.
actually to everybody, but to somebody that voiced a concern about it. And he seems to be very appreciative of our efforts. And you're right, it was a very nice letter.
Right, knowledge is power.
Yeah,
Okay,
he
number
was
18,
an
number 18,
eyewitness.
and number
Yeah,
18,
excuse me, we're not.
hello, did you want to speak?
Yeah.
Well,
We
you might-
we're having
you
a
might ask.
conversation. Well, Russ didn't ask, so I didn't think I needed to ask. Is there a new rule?
Well, that's the old rule.
Okay. Can I speak?
Yes.
I wanted to thank you for giving Mr. McKenna the attention he deserved. He's an eyewitness to what happened out there. He lives directly above it on the hillside and was able to see everything that happened. He's the one that raised these issues. So if there was any misinformation that you seem to refer to, I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but this is an opportunity, as you said, to educate everybody as to what went on there, what went on over the previous years. And we will continue to take a good hard look at the actions of this board over the past 2 decades. Thank you.
Okay, number 18, upcoming events and directors reports. Who would like to go first? Vice President Martin?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and
Okay.
start because mine's kind of lengthy, and I'll try and get through it as fast as I can. On the 14th of July, attended the first Priority 1 Coachella Valley Advisory Committee meeting. I was asked to sit on that Advisory Committee. It's an effort, it's a nonprofit agency trying to bring a standalone four-year university to the Coachella Valley, specifically the campus in Palm Desert. On the 15th, Desert Valley Building Association Networking Night. It was a well-attended event, nothing special to report there. Also on the 15th, Riverside County Wide Oversight Board meeting. We selected a new chairperson, Tammy Scott, with Phil Williams, previous chairman, taking the vice president or vice chair position. July 20th, Convention and Visitors Bureau meet and see, nothing to report there. On the 21st, Chamber Networking Night taking place at the Museum of Ancient Wonders in Cathedral City. That's an interesting venue. If anybody gets a chance to swing by there and take a look, it's all of the exhibits are replicas, but it's very educational. On August 24th, Palm Springs Chamber Networking Night at the new resort. Actually, it's not a new resort, it's a renamed resort, Margaritaville. And nothing special to report there. Then on the 6th, Desert Hot Springs City Council meeting. Most interesting was the council's public hearing on the Economic Development Incentive Agreement with Azure Palm Hot Springs Resort. That's a very impressive resort owned and direction by Maria Lease. And they have impressive plans to expand. On the 14th, Desert Valley Builders Association board meeting, there was an update on Desert Valley Builders Association versus the city of Coachella Valley concerning development impact fees. On the 20th of July, Riverside County Board of Supervisors, nothing to report there. On the 27th, again, Riverside County Board of Supervisors meeting, discussion regarding, this was an interesting one, the 93 wind turbines being replaced by only 16 turbines. However, the 16 turbines are 492 feet tall. So they're about the size of a 50-story building. On August 8th, was declared Tom Flores Day. He's a famous NFL coach who resides in the Coachella Valley. On August 5th, Desert Valley Builders Association Legislative Affairs Forum, well attended with local, county, state issues impacting development in the Coachella Valley. On the 12th, Desert Valley Builders Association board meeting, nothing to report. On the 13th, the BIA, Builders Industry Association Water Conference in Ontario. And it was an okay conference. It's more designed for people who know nothing about the impact of water and the process involved in development. It was a very, very elementary, but it was worth attending, I think. On the 17th, County Board of Supervisors meeting, discussion on the process for selecting a member of the Board of Directors seat on the Western Municipal Water District. The decision was on the appointment was moved to the August 24th meeting. On August 24th, again, County Board of Supervisors meeting. The supervisors interviewed 2 candidates to fill a vacant seat on the Western Municipal Water District. I found that interesting that they would actually be conducting a job interview during a regular County Board of Supervisors meeting as opposed to a special meeting specifically for that purpose. At any rate, they selected Laura Ruffton, who is a former city council member from Europa. Europa was selected to fill that vacant seat on again, that was the Western Municipal Water District. On August 30th through September 2nd, attended the CSDA conference with board members Duncan and Sewell, and Director Sewell gave an excellent presentation. I'm not going to add anything to that. And then not on the list that I attended was, of course, Cabot's Museum Foundation Board of Directors meeting. And there's nothing to report there, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Vice President Martin. Anybody, are you next, Randy? Okay.
I'll be next. All right, August 3rd, whoops, Desert Water Agency Board meeting. On their agenda was the subsidence study. And what we learned in that meeting and what we just got reassured or reconfirmed, can't remember, get the right word out, from Steve's letter is this is not a new study by anybody's urgings. This has been going on for many, many years. What they're doing is expanding the scope of this study. But this one will go on for 5 years, and we will be included in that proportionally, however, excuse me, however that turns out.
We participate equally.
Okay. August 10th, CVWD board meeting, nothing regarding Mission Springs, but they had a pretty full agenda. Oh, there, and this is back from August, their COVID numbers, they've had 96 recover from COVID, currently have 5 cases.
Wow.
They did a study on those who were vaccinated and not, and that's not really relevant right now.
I think they have what, around 400 employees, something like that.
Yeah, right around there. Yeah, they got a big group.
They had 2 deaths as well from the sewer treatment plant.
Oh, what a bummer.
Yeah. Where am I? Oh no, I'm sorry, this is the wrong one. Desert Water Agency, August 17th. Oh, they are also doing a reorg chart. And I wanted to bring up or wanted to ask about that. I realize this is not the time to talk about that, but we were going to work on that once upon a time. And I just kind of wondered where we were on that. The sorry, CSDA conference. A lot of good information in the breakout sessions. 2 that really stood out in my mind were not just data and info and graphics. There were 2 different speakers. First one was Kevin Brown. His topic was the hero effect. Bottom line, he has kind of the same image that Rotary does, service above self. By helping others, in return, it'll come back to you, which we could certainly, apply here. The second one was Jason Hewlett. Not quite as funny if you're just looking for entertainment value, but he had a real good message. And it's not gonna make a lot of sense if you didn't hear what built up to it. But his whole thing was, instead of thinking outside of the box, get back in the box. Because when you're 5, 6, 7 years old, that's where your imagination really takes off and your creative, thoughts are going. You can turn a refrigerator box into a spaceship, so his whole thing was get back into the box. And it was just a new twist to get you to think.
Like a kid, you go back to think it's simple.
Yeah. You use your imagination, but keep it simple. Yeah.
He also built on the first speaker. It was kind of interesting.
He did.
How they
he did kind of tag teamed off.
On that.
Yeah. And that's all I have.
Yeah, I think Ivan, you did yours on Thursday. Okay. Thank you. And I don't have any. And Director Grasha, it doesn't appear that you have any on this list. Is that accurate?
None that are, I attended many of the meetings that Director Duncan just referred to. And so because they're not on the list, I don't report on them. Thank you.
Okay. Next one is General Manager's report, item number 19.
Nothing new to add except for, and I think Mr. Pinckney will tell you that we're going to have a closed session tonight, which will be what I would add. I did want to add that for the board, but I have a family thing I need to go to during the meeting in October, so I may not be here.
Both of them or just one?
Yeah, well, I think I can be there virtually for the Thursday meeting, but I might be on a plane on Monday for the Monday meeting.
Okay, well, just let us know.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. District council comments?
Yes, we will have a closed session conference with legal counsel regarding pending litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1. One case, Mission Springs Water District versus Master Meter.
Okay, thank you. Director's comments. Mr. Grasha.
Well, I had a question. When we were presented with an agenda item several months ago regarding a study, a contract with Michael Baker International, and that what I was happy to vote for that because I was ensured that it would come back and that it could be used as part of our deliberation in terms of the wastewater treatment plant situation. And it sounds like that's not going to be ready in time to be included in the conversation. And I'm disappointed in that and hope that that maybe somebody can kind of chime in on that. Also, I walked the neighborhood with some residents and the frightening look really when you walk through their neighborhood and you have these towering, they're 10 feet. You see the ponds over their backyard fence from their backyard, and they're frightened. I don't blame them. One's already failed. I'm hoping that sometime there can be some dialogue about how we can kind of soothe the problems over there. I know there's acreage available that would allow us to take that blight really and move it out of the way so they don't have to look at it and have to be frightened in their homes that it's going to break open and flood their houses. And I'm hoping that we can have a serious discussion about that. There's 80 acres available to the right that could be purchased at a reasonable price. And I think that when we find out what CVWD just did, increase the size of one of their most important plants from up to, I think it's 85 million gallons a day. Sounds crazy when they started out at, it was huge to begin with, 35. For $27 million. And the idea that we are being pushed into doing what we're doing down by the freeway and to build a 10-mile conveyance line or whatever, 2 or 3 miles, whatever it is, I forget, to service a neighborhood that is virtually shares a lot line with our existing plant. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. And it's a huge expense to this community is going to have to take on. And in my view, with so many people now taken out of the economic blessings of our country after this past year, that we need to take a good hard look at what we're doing. I don't think we're doing the right thing by our citizens. I think what we're doing is burying a couple of blunders by a previous board member, or current board member, but previous boards to give away the land needed to expand the plant. And I think if we still had control of that land, we would not be forced to build that conveyance line. And it's just very sad that this is being pushed along to protect one person's political agenda and not face the realities of what we're doing. With that, I thank you very much.
One comment, the ponds that he is referring to did not breach. Okay.
Okay. Well, as I said before, that the presentation that Steve Ledbetter just gave, it just shows that wastewater treatment plant is in the right place. The regional plant is in the right place. So we'll, at least that goes on. And we've heard what Steve said many times about his thoughts and his comments, and that's your opinion, and that's fine.
We've, over the last decade, have had dozens and dozens of presentations to the board and to the public regarding the decision to do this. And it really plays out well for a number of different reasons.
Yeah, it's going to help keep our basin sustainable maybe in many years to come by having the plant out there and sending all the effluent out there to that plant. Anyway, okay. So Vice President Martin.
Yeah. The only comment I'll make is that the members of this board who are seated here in person all know the difference between treated wastewater and raw sewage. And that might be something you want to look at to any board member that doesn't know the difference should at least educate themselves on the difference between the two. That's all I have to say.
Ivan?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a big thank you to all the staff that put together the blood drive this past couple of weeks. Annual event that we do every year, and it's a good event for our community. I was sad I wasn't able to make it, but I know a few people that went, and they said it was a good time and had a good turnout. So thank you to everyone that put that together.
Yeah, I did owe that one. I forgot about that. I wasn't in town either. So.
Real quick, just want to thank President, Vice President there for your comments, your moment of silence, the reading of the names earlier today. It sounds rough in such a short sentence if I don't really build up to it. But the only comfort that you can take from this is knowing that those young people died, although tragically and unnecessarily, they died doing what they loved doing. You know, the Marines have a bond and a brotherhood that nobody else will ever understand. You know, the soldier and the sailor, they're also part of that family. So thank you for that dedication.
Thank you for your service and your dedication to the country. Mr. Marine, yeah, okay. Okay, so I think that's it. So we will now be going into closed session.
Right, we're going into closed session on the master meter case.
Okay.
I've already announced it.
Yes, he's announced it. Okay, so we'll kind of take a 5-minute while we get organized here.
If we can just check to see if we have Sean Murphy also on the.
Because
He is not on the line.
Okay, I'll call him during the break.
Okay, Dory, you're gonna have some warning. Isn't it the class action?
It would probably be on the calendar.
Hi, guys. Welcome back. We're recording.
Let me see, what did my calendar say?
So.
Okay, Pinkney?
Yes, the board met in closed session conference with legal counsel regarding pending litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1, one case, Mission Springs Water District versus Master Meter. There was no reportable action taken in closed session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. You have a class action meeting tomorrow via Zoom, 10 a.m.
Oh, that's class action.
Let me look at my calendar.
He had that on his, I think. Okay.
No, I don't have anything on my calendar. I'm not sure what that would be.
I think it was
anything on
extended
mine
out.
either.
I think it was an extended out. Okay, so if nothing else, meeting adjourned. Thank you.